working with a lot of international students, we found that it's challenging to get study permits sometimes. What makes it really challenging is that it's like a black box. You don't know what's happening with study permits. So Sohail and I decided to sit down with Pavel, who's an immigration consultant. He's an expert when it comes to study permits with the Canadian government. Sit down with him on a regular basis and kind of pick his brain and see, like we've been doing in the past with immigration topics. But what makes this interesting as a show, as a program, is that we're actually going to look at actual cases, look at case studies of people who got refused with study permits, and try and look at what's going on. It turns out that it is a black box, but it's almost like there's a hole. You know, you can look into it and see what they're doing. That hole is called CAPES notes. Pavel, can you tell us what CAPES notes are?
Okay, so CAPES notes is a system, is a name of the computer system that immigration officers do use. Basically, it's an old name, right? So CAPES stands for Computer Assisted Immigration Processing System, right?
Okay.
Nowadays, these systems, it's called a little different, GCMC. So it stands for Global Case Management System. But everybody keep calling
Just
it
refers to it as
CAPES notes, and basically for older cases, it's still CAPES notes.
Okay.
Right? But anyway, so we'll call it CAPES notes.
Okay.
Yeah. So CAPES notes is this computerized system that all officers have to write something when they refuse a case, or even if they approve the case, they still have to do their comments, right? They cannot just refuse you, or they cannot just approve you. They have to write why do they refuse this case, or why do they approve it. They have to put some ground there. And it's a way more detailed information than someone can receive in this rejection.
Yeah, because like, what do we usually get in rejection letters?
This is the thing that I wanted to talk to. It's been quite a while that we're doing this. It's like 6 or 7 years, and at first it's kind of like coded when you get when the person, the applicant, gets the refusal letter. It's kind of coded. You don't understand what is wrong, and I can just tell you like an example of this, or I can read for you.
Yeah.
Basically,
So this is an actual example.
This is an actual example. Of course, it doesn't have the name or whatever, and I can actually show it to the camera. You receive a letter with a few boxes in front of it, and one or more of them are actually checked. And when you take a look at these boxes, it does not really give you an idea of what went wrong. So you are technically looking at this black box not knowing what was wrong and why you crashed.
You have to guess.
So, I'm just, as an example, I'm just telling you, it says, you've not satisfied me that you would leave Canada at the end of your stay as a temporary resident. In reaching this decision, I considered several factors including travel history, immigration status in country of residence, family ties in Canada and in country of residence, length of proposed stay in Canada, purpose of visit, and I can tell you 90% the purpose of visit is already checked. Employment prospects in country of residence, current employment situation, personal assets and financial status. For most of people, this is also checked if they're not satisfied. At least this one you can figure out what is wrong with it. Right, they didn't have enough money, or they didn't actually show that they have enough money to stay here. Or, you know, one of the most vague one is that travel history that we're talking about. Like, what do you want us to have as travel history? Does it mean if I go from Vancouver to Calgary, is it considered a travel
history,
or not? So, anyhow, this thing that you see here is coded.
So they're very, very vague, right? They're like categories almost that you could fit anything.
Exactly. So if you really want to know what went wrong, and thanks to Pavel, he instructed us, hey, there is a way that you can contact the immigration and get these CAPES notes from them.
It's the law, right? They have to turn that information over.
They have to, yeah. So everything should be written, everything should be filed, right? And for each case, sometimes when we read these CAPES notes, sometimes it's really not much information. I mean, 10 lines or less, right? But sometimes you can see...
10 lines or less is a lot more than the
little
bullet points,
right? But in some cases, there is really investigation, like really, really deep investigation, and it's like a story, right? So you can read it, and after you read whatever is written there, you really have the full picture of what concerns does the officer had in your case, for a case.
Yeah, so that's the thing. We thought that it would be nice, it would be interesting to tell one of these stories in each one of these episodes. Well, let's get started.
Yes,
can
exactly.
We try one?
I actually went through some of this stuff and I found, of course they're all coded, I don't know who is who, there is no name on them. and they're from different countries. And the one that I found very, very interesting is actually, I would like to start with
Let's do it.
And it can tell you how deep an immigration officer can dig through your records and to find whether you're a bona fide applicant or not.
Okay, stop teasing us. Tell us what the notes say.
Okay, the notes is very interesting. It says the applicant states that she's going to work for a private company. The immigration officer actually went on this company's website, started checking.
On the company that's supposedly going to hire the applicant, right?
No, she said that she was working there.
Oh, she was working there.
She said that she was working there. But the officer did not check the website for them. He or she went to the website of the government of that country to see if this is an actual company registered with them, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then he or she started digging, like the officer started digging to see who's the owner of this. And figured that this person, the applicant, is a co-founder of that company. He also found that they had the same name as the applicant's boyfriend. So he figured that this company was founded by these two people.
How did he know the applicant's boyfriend?
They go to Facebook.
Facebook.
Yeah. So also there was an information on the state registry that current company's field of activity is tobacco, food, and alcohol retail, providing fast food services, etc. Found applicants' review in the internet about her studies in language school in Malta. Like, he really started digging into like Facebook, Twitter, like social media.
Really went far with
And exactly, this is just a suggestion for people. You don't have to live on the internet. Like, keep some of the stuff for yourself. So he is actually pointing out at what she stated on the social media. It says she stated that she's planning to go for the postgrad program to Canada, and then later on, he finds it not in line with what she said on the application. Like the officer found stuff on the internet that basically negates or contradicts to whatever that it was there. So it says applicant has been unemployed since February 2017 according to self-declaration. So that's number one. Okay. You told us that you're working in this company. You told us that you're an employee, but I found that you have a company, right?
The company that you said you used to work for, you
exactly.
actually own the company.
Research indicates that the letter of commitment from prospective future employer is self-serving.
Wow.
Like, she had a letter from this particular company that says, we will hire you when you come back to the country. But obviously, like, he dug enough and he figured that, okay, this is the company, or like with the co-owner being her boyfriend. And then it says, as a co-owner of company, the other co-owner of the company appears to be the father of applicant's boyfriend. So he really went into
the father of the applicant's
boyfriend. So can you imagine like how much time this person spent on the internet trying to figure out whether this person was a bona fide student or not? It's a self-declared intent, as found on her webpage, indicates intention to pursue postgrad studies in Canada. But there is sufficient doubts raised about her transparency that places in doubt the bona fide of this application. As a result, refused. I find this one the most interesting because the immigration officer really did a good job of research.
So to sum this up, this lady, this girl applied saying, I want to get a study permit to go to postgraduate.
Right?
Please.
Basically,
decode this for us.
Yeah, this case is not for study permit, actually, right? This is for visitor, right?
Okay.
And why it was refused? Because the information that he found on this website, it was written that she states that she's planning to go for postgraduate program in Canada on some other.
Oh, on some.
So she applies for visitor visa, but at the same time she declares at the internet.
So, like for example, she had a Facebook update or something that said, "Hey guys, I'm going to Canada to study for my postgraduate."
Yes. So basically,
and that just killed the application for visitors.
Yeah. And of course we will review some other applications, but what these applications show us and what we can teach, what we can learn from this case is that you always have to think about your intent. If your intent is study in Canada, so you should provide all the possible proofs that you will study there. You will not go for the work. You will not go to apply further for any kind of immigration, permanent residency, or etc. You probably don't have any boyfriend who lives in Canada or any relatives, very close relatives who live in Canada, because this will diminish your overall intent, right? Because probably even if you apply right now for study permit, but at the same time, if something shows the officer that you might later change your intent, this is bad.
Okay, I want to ask you this question because it looks like a double-edged sword. If your brother lives in Canada per se, and like usually we have applicants that they're like they have brothers or sisters or like very close relatives, and they're like, okay, well this could be a good thing because we support these people when it comes to financials. So that could be a good thing, but right now I'm hearing from you that that is not a good thing because it just tells you that the intent is not really studying and they just want to stay because their relatives are here.
This can be good thing, this can be bad thing. So when the officer comes to work and opens the case, what he wants to see? So basically he is valuing the connections of this principal applicant in his home country towards the things that he might get in Canada. And if the connections in Canada prevail over the connections in the home country, this is bad.
That's a pass.
So we have to do everything possible to show the officers the connections in the home country do prevail over the whatever he has, relatives, friends, or whatever in Canada, right?
Which indicates he's going to go back.
Absolutely, yeah. So basically we work on the property, financial situation, employment situation, everything in the home country.
Family as well, like you could be married and if your wife stays there, that's like a big connection.
Very good connection, very big connection. Wife, children, employment, business, this is all very good connection.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you have wife in Canada, no, not good.
That's really bad.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, short and sweet, if you were hired with this CAPES notes, what would your advice be to this young lady?
Okay, so
to reapply.
So of course, if someone wants to reapply after being rejected, so the first thing I will do, I will order this CAPES note, right? I will never reapply without this, right? So this is the first thing I will do. Basically, maybe you don't know this one, but CAPES note, when you request a CAPES note, it will take 30 days to get it.
30
right?
days.
So it's not like you just order and you get it. No, it takes some time. It takes some work. Also, so people who are overseas students themselves, they actually cannot get it, right? So it's
this was my question. Who can get the CAPES notes?
So basically, this CAPES note is part of the Freedom of Information Act. So basically,
Canadian citizen.
First of all, it should be Canadian citizen, and also you probably have to have some knowledge how to do it, right? So in our case, I would say that it's better if it will be done by some immigration consultant or someone who can get this CAPES note and who can explain
who can
what
decipher it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Usually, CAPES note is something like 30 to 50 pages long document, right?
Mm-hmm.
So most of it is technical information, when it was applied, when it was transferred to one office to another office, everything. So basically, but still we can get a lot of useful information even from this technical scene, right? So for example, on the very first page of this CAPES note, what I usually do when I get it, I check how much money the officer approved for this case. So for example, person states that he claims that he has $50,000 available, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, applicant have to provide the proof of this money, right? And for example, of this $50,000 that applicant claim, the officer only approves, say, 20, because he sees the proof of 20, right? So he will put in this CAPES note $20,000, right? So I see, for example, when for example I have a case that was rejected because of financial situation, right? So first thing I see, I check is this how much money the officer put in his case, right? So
but really, for this particular case, I don't think that she has a chance to apply.
No, because
well, I mean, there's lack of transparency. This guy is saying you're lying to me, so it's
so that there is no chance, and this thing is going to stay there. Like every time that she applies, they're just going to go take a look at it, and they're like, "Oh, you lied once." So this is very, very important. Never lie to an immigration officer in Canada. They will find, if they want to, and you can see from the extent of this.
Never lie to an officer, period, whether it's immigration or not. All right, let's end this episode, gentlemen. We'll come back and look at another case in the next episode. Hopefully you learned something. The key is know your stuff before you apply.